Hey everyone. In today's video, we will see how we can configure multiple GitHub accounts on the single machine. You might have one GitHub account for your organization and another GitHub account for your personal projects, for your personal repositories. And you might only have one single machine where you have to work on both personal as well as the projects for your organization on that single machine. So you have to configure both the GitHub accounts, right? So that you can switch between the projects easily. So I'll just show how we can do that. And this is my GitHub project. I've put in all the details here also. I'm going to follow exactly the same steps, whatever I've mentioned here. I'll put this link in the YouTube video also, so you can go and check it out. All right, so I also have two GitHub accounts. One is for my YouTube channel, one is for my private projects. So firstly, what we have to do, wherever you are, you just go to, okay, I'm already in SSH folder. If you are not in SSH folder, you can just do cd to your SSH folder. After that, you have to generate. So, okay, one more thing before I go further. I'm using SSH to work with GitHub in this video, right? So you have to generate the SSH key for your account. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to generate the SSH key. So I'm using this command where C just stands for comment. You can put any comment. I try to put the Gmail ID so that I know on which account I'm working on right now, right? So this is my chalocodekare@gmail.com, and this is the file in which my SSH key will be stored, right? So I'm generating this key. It says it's already exists. Okay, so I'll say not to worry. Maybe I'll just say, let's say, test, right? So then it's asking for the passphrase. I don't want to give anything, so just enter, and then it'll create the private and public key, both the keys for you. So we had given test, right? So if you can see here, the file with the extension pub, this is your public key, and then the file without any extension, this is your private key, right? So you have both the keys in here. So after generating the key, what you have to do, you actually have to, so okay, so this is what I have mentioned in the document here also, so you can just go through it and you can see. Then after that, what you have to do, you have to add these SSH key to your SSH agent, right? So how you add it, you just do SSH add. So I'm just going to exactly copy paste so that you know whatever I've put in there, you can also follow exactly the same steps. So you in SSH, you in your SSH agent, you actually have to add your private key, right? And not the public key. So SSH add, and I'm giving this path, and then I'm pressing on tab. So it'll take the full path, and then after that it'll add the identity, right? So it says identity added. So we've generated the keys so far, and then we have added the key also. Now what you have to do, you have to we have created both private and public key, right? So this public key, now you have to add it in your GitHub account so that you can authenticate with your GitHub account whenever you are pushing and pulling the code, right? So for that, what you have to do, you just go to your GitHub account, you just go to your settings, then here's the option to add SSH key. So you just go to SSH and GPG keys, and then here you can click on new SSH key. You can give any title, uh, any name, whatever you feel like giving. So I prefer to give like admin user, or if I'm working on some personal projects, if I'm so accordingly you can choose any name. And then what you have to do, so you actually have to do, you have to actually get the content of your public key and whatever it will display here. Okay, I'll delete this public key anyway, so I can just show it. So it starts from SSH RSA, and it ends on your email ID, whatever you give in the comment section, right? When you were generating the key. So you have to entirely copy paste this entire thing, public key, and then you click on add. Right? So I'm not going to add it here. I'm just showing, and then meanwhile, okay, probably I'll add it, then later on I can delete. So test, I'll give it test so that I know I have to delete this. Okay, so this has been added. Now you have added in your GitHub repository also. So now what you have to do, you have to go to .ssh folder again, then you just see the config. You just edit this config file. Just type config. I use the notepad, and then you just say test github.com git identify would be test, and save it. So if you see the content again, this has been added, right? So your key has been added in your config file, and then after that you can use this. So I have already added, right? So one for Chalo Code Kare, I have added the configuration here. Similarly, for my another account also, I had created the public and private keys, and then I've added the private key in my SSH agent, right? And then the public key I'd added in my GitHub account. So for so let's say if you are having two accounts, so for both the accounts you have to generate your public and private keys, and you have to add public keys in the respective GitHub accounts, and you have to add your private keys in the SSH agent, and then you have to make the entries in the config files, right? So you come here, you make the entries. So I have already added the entries for Chalo Code Kare for all other users also, and now I have added for test also. So now when, let's say if you want to clone a particular repository, let's say if you want to clone this particular repository, so how you do it in this command, right? Git clone. So this name, whatever name you are giving here before this colon, so whatever host here you are specifying, right? So if I say test, so basically if I give test, it will work on this identity file. And this identity file, the public key you have already provided in your GitHub account. You have already added the SSH key in your GitHub account, so it will be able to authenticate with your GitHub account using that public key, right? And private key you have already added in your SSH agent. So now you just need to do git clone test, and then the entire path of the Git project, which is Chalo Code Kare, work with multiple GitHub accounts. I've given the entire path, and when I do git clone, it'll clone the repository. Alright, so it has cloned the repository. Now I'll just do cd in that project, and you can also verify your remote URL like this, right? So if I say git remote -v, it'll say on which user I'm working on right now. If I were working on some other user, instead of test, I should have seen the other user, right? Okay. And now with this, one more thing you have to do. So because you are having multiple GitHub accounts, right? So for each GitHub account, your username and user email will change. So ideally, the best thing to do is whenever you clone a repository or whenever you create a new repository, you always configure username and email address for that repository. So whenever you check in something, right? Whenever you commit something into your GitHub account, the proper username shows up. So for Chalo Code Kare, I'll give username like Chalo Code Kare, and for my personal repositories, I'll give my own name, right? So that I know, okay, you should not commit with some other username to your GitHub repository, right? So to do that, what you can do, you just give it like this, git config user.name, whatever name you want to give, and similarly you just do user.email, right? So you just type these two commands, and then whenever you will commit anything, the corresponding username and email ID will be associated with that particular commit. All right, so that's it for today's video. If you have any doubt, any question, or if you are getting stuck anywhere, please feel free to comment in the video, and I shall help you with all my best of capabilities. And